Oliver Queen was born into privilege, the heir to Queen Industries, a company that spanned the globe. He had everything anyone could ever want: wealth, status, and a future that seemed as bright as the glistening skyline of Star City. But beneath that perfect surface, something darker festered. Oliver Queen had always been reckless, indulging in the excesses of his wealth, living a life of excess and squandering his potential. The young billionaire was a man out of touch with the world, with no real understanding of what it meant to fight for something greater than himself. That all changed one fateful day, when Oliver found himself stranded on a deserted island. The once proud playboy was now alone, abandoned, and forced to confront the harsh realities of survival. The island, known as Lianyu, became his crucible, a place where his weaknesses were exposed and his true character was forged in fire. It was here that Oliver Queen learned what true resilience meant, not through luxury, but through the brutal struggle to stay alive. On that island, Oliver met a man who would change his life forever: mentor named Yao Fei, a former soldier and martial artist. Yao Fei taught Oliver how to fight, how to survive, and, most importantly, how to defend others. The lessons were harsh, the pain was real, but Oliver began to understand that strength wasn't about how much power you could wield, it was about how much you could give to protect the weak. The island wasn't just a place for survival, it was a battlefield, one where Oliver learned that not all enemies could be defeated with brute strength alone. He had to become smarter, faster, and more resourceful. His hands, once accustomed to holding expensive drinks and socializing with the elite, now gripped a bow and arrow. His body, once soft and pampered, became lean, hardened by daily training and necessity. It was here that he found his true calling, not as a billionaire playboy, but as a man capable of taking on the injustices of the world. In time, Oliver found his way off the island, but not without scars, both physical and emotional. The man who returned to Star City was a different person. He had seen the darkness of humanity and had learned that there was no place for him in a world where people lived in selfishness and apathy. It was clear to him now that the rich and powerful were often the ones who perpetrated the injustice he had witnessed on the island. And as a new vigilante, the Green Arrow emerged from the shadows of Star City. Oliver Queen had returned to Star City, but the world he once knew had changed. The island had reshaped him, not only physically but morally. He was no longer the man who had indulged in reckless luxury. He was no longer the carefree billionaire playboy who hid behind his privilege. He had become something else: a warrior, a protector, a symbol of resistance. The world was full of suffering, corruption, and crime, and Oliver could no longer stand idly by. With his newfound skills, his moral compass reset, and the lessons learned in the crucible of Lianyu, the Green Arrow rose from the shadows to confront the injustices of Star City. His first few nights as a vigilante were chaotic. Oliver didn't have the resources he once had, but he had the will, and that was enough. Armed with a bow, a quiver of arrows, and a determination to clean up the streets of his city, he hunted down the criminal elite that had long plagued Star City. His arrows were precise, often targeting the corrupt, the criminals who thought themselves untouchable because of their wealth and power. But he quickly realized that his mission would not be so simple. Star City was a place of complex corruption, and there were layers to its problems that went beyond petty criminals and street gangs. To be effective, Green Arrow had to outsmart not only the criminals he fought, but the system that protected them. The elite weren't just a group of criminals, they were embedded in the fabric of the city. From crooked businessmen to corrupt politicians, they controlled everything. Oliver's battle wasn't just against individual wrongdoers, it was against a system that made the innocent suffer. In the early days, Oliver didn't have the luxury of allies. He operated alone, his only weapon the arrows in his quiver and the skills he had developed during his time on the island. Yet, even in those first, desperate days, there was something different about Oliver Queen. The same drive, the same fire that had kept him alive on Lianyu burned within him. He was determined, relentless, and willing to sacrifice everything to make things right. The first major test of Oliver's resolve came when he faced off against the infamous crime boss Frank Bertinelli, the man who ran the criminal syndicates in Star City. Bertinelli was ruthless and powerful, a man who operated in the shadows and was well protected by corrupt police officers and politicians. When Oliver first confronted Bertinelli, it was more than a battle of physical strength, it was a clash of ideals. Bertinelli believed in the power of money and influence. while Oliver believed in justice, in the idea that right should prevail over wrong. The fight was brutal. For the first time, Oliver realized that crime fighting was not just about stopping the bad guys, it was about challenging an entire system that perpetuated evil. The battle was messy, chaotic, and costly, but in the end, Oliver came out on top, not through sheer strength, but by using his mind and his resourcefulness. But the victory was short-lived. Bertinelli was only the beginning of a much larger web of corruption. As Green Arrow, Oliver began to face more dangerous foesmen and women who were just as ruthless, but far more cunning. He quickly realized that to take down the real criminals, he would need more than just the bow and arrows. He would need allies, people who could help him navigate the treacherous world of politics and crime. It wasn't long before he formed his first team. The first to join him was John Diggle, a former soldier who became his closest ally and partner. Diggle was everything Oliver was not: steady, loyal, and grounded. He was the voice of reason, the reminder that Oliver couldn't do this alone. Together, they began to build a network of informants, allies, and other vigilantes. Oliver's journey to becoming the Green Arrow wasn't just about fighting crime, it was about building a team, a group of people who could stand beside him and take on the challenges that no one else dared face. But Oliver's greatest challenge was still ahead of him: the League of Assassins and its deadly leader, Ra's al Ghul. The League represented a threat far beyond the reach of any single hero. They were not just criminals, they were an ideology, an organization dedicated to reshaping the world through violence and destruction. Ra's al Ghul's influence reached far and wide, and when the League set its sights on Star City, mission became a race against time. In facing Ra's al Ghul and the League, Oliver was pushed to his limits. The fight wasn't just physical, it was a battle of wills, of philosophies. Ra's al Ghul believed in reshaping the world by any means necessary, even if it meant the death of millions. Oliver, on the other hand, was driven by a sense of justice, believed in protecting the innocent, in restoring balance without destroying the world to do it. It was during this time that Oliver began to question himself. Was he really doing the right thing? Was his vigilante war worth the cost? Could he stop Ra's al Ghul without becoming the very thing he was fighting against? But the answer was clear. He couldn't stop. He couldn't back down. For Star City, for his city, for the people he had vowed to protect. As Green Arrow's influence began to grow, so too did the complexities of his mission. The city of Star City, once plagued by corruption and crime, now found itself in the crosshairs of powerful enemies that were more than just street thugs. Oliver Queen had moved beyond being just a man with a bow and arrows. He had become a symbol of resistance, an embodiment of justice. But the cost of this symbol was immense, and Oliver would soon face trials that would test not only his body but his soul. The first true test of his moral resolve came with the emergence of a new adversary, Merlin, the world's deadliest archer, and a man who would become a dark reflection of everything Oliver had fought to protect. Merlin, also known as the Dark Archer, was a man who embraced the philosophy of violence, destruction, and the belief that the world needed to be cleansed to be reborn. He believed in chaos, the very thing Green Arrow had sworn to fight. Against Merlin's arrival in Star City wasn't just a new threat, it was a personal attack on Oliver. Merlin was a master of archery, just as skilled as Oliver, but with a ruthless and deadly approach. Their battles were not just physical, they were psychological. Merlin's taunts, his deep understanding of Oliver's past, and his willingness to destroy everything Oliver held dear, made him a terrifying adversary. It was clear that this was no ordinary villain. This was a mirror of Oliver's own potential downfall, a reflection of the darkness that could consume him if he strayed from his path. As the battles with Merlin escalated, Oliver found himself increasingly torn between his duty as a hero and his own personal life. He had forged alliances with people like Diggle and Felicity Smoke, and even found love with Laurel Lance. Yet, despite these connections, Oliver felt isolated. His dual identity as Oliver Queen, the billionaire playboy, and Green Arrow, the vigilante hero, was taking a toll on his relationships. His obsession with Star City's safety and the pursuit of justice pushed him further into the shadows, causing him to sacrifice his personal happiness and well-being for the greater good. At the same time, the city itself began to fracture, with Merlin's machinations threatening to destabilize everything. Oliver realized that the price of heroism wasn't just the blood he spilled in the streets, it was the very people he cared about. The League of Assassins had come calling, once again, with Ra's al Ghul seeking to reshape the world, starting with Star City. To stop him, Oliver had to confront not only his enemies, but also the deepest parts of himself. The choices he made in those moments would define the kind of hero he would become, the man he would have to sacrifice to protect the city. On his struggle against Merlin and the League, Oliver was forced to make decisions that blurred the lines between right and wrong. There was no longer a clear distinction between hero and villain, and Oliver had to confront the brutal truth that sometimes the only way to protect people was by making sacrifices that no hero should have to bear. One of the most defining moments in Oliver's journey occurred when he was faced with the ultimate moral dilemma, the choice between saving Star City and sacrificing the lives of those closest to him. Ra's al Ghul's plan was set into motion, a bomb that could destroy the entire city, leaving nothing but ashes in its wake. In the end, it was Oliver's greatest challenge. Would he destroy the man he had once been, the playboy billionaire? To save the city, would he sacrifice everything: his friendships, his love for Laurel, his connections, to ensure Star City's survival? In that moment, Oliver was reminded of the painful lesson he had learned on Lian Yu. Sacrifice was the true test of a hero. No longer could he hide behind the mask of privilege. His fate and the fate of Star City rested solely in his hands. The battle with Merlin and the League was only one part of Oliver's evolution. Another challenge came from within, as the darkness that had long resided within him threatened to overtake his mission. As Green Arrow, Oliver had been able to fight evil on the outside, but now he was forced to confront the darkness in himself: his anger, his desire for vengeance, his willingness to sacrifice everything for the sake of justice. In a world where heroes had to make hard choices, Oliver struggled to balance his morality with the demands of his war on crime. He had made countless enemies, and not all of them were as easily defeated as Merlin or the League of Assassins. Some were people he once called allies, like John Diggle, who found himself questioning Oliver's methods. Others, like Ra's al Ghul, pushed Oliver to the limits of his beliefs, tempting him with the idea that the world could only be saved through destruction. Ra's was a reflection of the path Oliver could have walked, a path where the ends justified the means. The battles didn't just take place in the streets of Star City, they took place in Oliver's mind and soul. He was no longer just fighting criminals, he was fighting the legacy of his past, the shadow of the man he had been before. The island. In those moments, he found himself questioning whether the man who had survived the island and risen from the ashes could continue to hold on to the values he had adopted, or whether the brutality of his world would consume him. As Oliver grappled with his personal demons, Star City became a battleground, not just for survival, but for the soul of its protector. The Green Arrow was no longer just a vigilante. He was a man who had faced the darkness and walked away, and now he had to decide if he was ready to confront the very forces that had threatened to break him. Oliver Queen had become something more than just a hero in a mask. He was the Green Arrow, the embodiment of a city that refused to fall. He was a man who had seen the worst the world had to offer and had emerged from the ashes, scarred but unbroken. He had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, a single person could stand up for what was right, even when the world seemed to be falling apart around them. But the true test was yet to come. The Green Arrow had made his mark on Star City, but there were more challenges ahead. Enemies like Deathstroke, the Dark Archer, and Ra's al Ghul were just the beginning. As Oliver's story continued to unfold, one question remained: would the Green Arrow become a symbol of hope, or would he fall into the darkness he had so often battled against? As Green Arrow's journey continued, Oliver Queen found himself standing at the crossroads of destiny. Star City was his home, the people his responsibility, but the choices he had made, the alliances he had forged, and the battles he had fought, had all led him to a terrifying realization: a hero's war never truly ends. Every victory is temporary. Every sacrifice carries a new cost. The line between right and wrong blurred with each passing day, and Oliver was no longer sure of who he was meant to be. But despite the darkness that seemed to surround him, Oliver's commitment to Star City remained unyielding. He had faced down enemies who threatened to destroy his city, his world, and even his very soul, yet his resolve remained strong. The legacy of the Green Arrow was built on more than just the bow and arrows he wielded. It was built on the choices he made, the people he saved, and the ideals he refused to abandon. In the aftermath of the battles with Merlin, Ra's al Ghul, and the League of Assassins, Oliver realized that his mission was far from over. The city was in ruins, both physically and morally, and it was up to him to rebuild it. But the city had also given birth to new enemies who were more cunning, more dangerous, and more willing to manipulate the system to their advantage. They were the hidden threats, the unseen criminals who operated in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One of the greatest challenges Oliver faced in this phase of his journey came in the form of a villain whose intelligence and strategic brilliance rivaled his own. Prometheus. Unlike Merlin or Ra's al Ghul, Prometheus wasn't a man driven by personal vendettas or grandiose ideals. He was a criminal mastermind, a tactical genius who understood the inner workings of every hero, every defense system, and every weakness. In Star City's infrastructure, his goal wasn't just to destroy Oliver, it was to break him, to show that the Green Arrow was just as fallible as the criminals he fought against. Prometheus attacked from the shadows, setting elaborate traps that targeted Oliver's allies, friends, and family. He played on Oliver's guilt, exploiting his personal relationships and forcing him to make impossible choices. As the city fell into chaos once again, Oliver realized that he was facing a different kind of war. This time, it wasn't just about physical battles, it was a mental and emotional struggle that would push him to the brink of his humanity. But the challenges didn't stop with Prometheus. As if his mind wasn't already shattered by the personal toll of his war on crime, Oliver was forced to confront his most brutal and relentless enemy, Deathstroke, the assassin who had nearly destroyed him in the past. Deathstroke, with his deadly skills and unparalleled combat tactics, was a living nightmare. He had once been a mercenary hired to kill Green Arrow, but over time, Deathstroke had become something far more personal. The battles between them were no longer just about survival. They were about honor, vengeance, and something much deeper. Deathstroke represented everything Oliver had come to fight against: dispassionate violence, a cold, calculated approach to killing. As Deathstroke returned to Star City, it was clear that Oliver's old adversary wasn't just back for another fight. This time, Deathstroke was here to prove something. He had learned from their past encounters, and now he would fight Oliver not just with brute force, but with strategy, using Oliver's own methods against him. The final battle between them was a test of wits, strength, and willpower, a battle where Oliver had to dig deeper than ever before to survive. As Oliver confronted these external threats, he also faced an internal crisis. The Green Arrow had always been a symbol of justice, but it was clear that even the noblest of heroes could fall victim to the very darkness they fought to destroy. Throughout his journey, Oliver had made mistakes that haunted him. The constant struggle between his identity as Oliver Queen, the billionaire playboy, and Green Arrow, the vigilante hero, was taking a toll on his relationships. His obsession with Star City's safety and the pursuit of justice pushed him further into the shadows, causing him to sacrifice his personal happiness and well-being for the greater good. At the same time, the city itself began to fracture, with Merlin's machinations threatening to destabilize everything. Oliver realized that the price of heroism wasn't just the blood he spilled in the streets, it was the very people he cared about. The League of Assassins had come calling, once again, with Ra's al Ghul seeking to reshape the world, starting with Star City. To stop him, Oliver had to confront not only his enemies, but also the deepest parts of himself. The choices he made in those moments would define the kind of hero he would become, the man he would have to sacrifice to protect the city. In facing Ra's al Ghul and the League, Oliver was pushed to his limits. The fight wasn't just physical, it was a battle of wills, of philosophies. Ra's al Ghul believed in reshaping the world by any means necessary, even if it meant the death of millions. Oliver, on the other hand, was driven by a sense of justice. He believed in protecting the innocent, in restoring balance without destroying the world to do it. It was during this time that Oliver began to question himself. Was he really doing the right thing? Was his vigilante war worth the cost? Could he stop Ra's al Ghul without becoming the very thing he was fighting against? But the answer was clear. He couldn't stop. He couldn't back down. For Star City, for his city, for the people he had vowed to protect, Oliver Queen had become something more than just a hero in a mask. He was the Green Arrow, the embodiment of a city that refused to fall. He was a man who had seen the worst the world had to offer, and had emerged from the ashes, scarred but unbroken. He had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, a single person could stand up for what was right. even when the world seemed to be falling apart around them. But the true test was yet to come. The Green Arrow had made his mark on Star City, but there were more challenges ahead. Enemies like Deathstroke, the Dark Archer, and Ra's al Ghul were just the beginning. As Oliver's story continued to unfold, one question remained. Would the Green Arrow become a symbol of hope, or would he fall into the darkness he had so often battled against?